The following is a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
From the birthplace of modern winemaking, Sonoma, California, welcome to The Winemakers. Local experts Sam Couture, Bart Hansen, and Brian Casey, along with host John Myers, invite you to listen in as they discuss all facets of winemaking. So sit back, pour yourself a glass, and let's hear what the guys have to say this week.
Oh, damn.
Oh, yeah. Bart, thank you. You almost shattered my eardrum there with that screw cap. Welcome to the Winemakers.
That's the sound of organic Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah, it is. We are
organically grown Sauvignon Blanc.
Thank you.
You know what? We all know what we're talking about. It's the world and the TTB, quite frankly, that doesn't get it. So.
Welcome to the Winemakers. We are in St. Helena today with Bart Hansen, myself, Brian Casey. Sam is out on assignment. John Myers doing his radio show, so we have James Joyner in the house.
Sam's official doppelganger.
And we are in Joel Gott's facility, office,
strange conference room,
house. I'm not exactly
Bat
sure
cave.
what goes on here.
Joel Gott's back cave.
Yeah, we're in a conference room, and
it was interesting coming in though. Like you guys obviously have a very professional, very cool tasting bar for coming up with your blends. But it was a little bit like what are those things called? A labyrinth coming in.
Yeah,
I thought
we tried to lose one of you on the way in, but you stuck together.
Right.
It's like the corn maze.
Yeah. No, it kind of looked like an elementary school. I felt like I was driving back to John Lasseter's house back behind the school over in Glen Ellen. It looked like it had little classrooms or whatever. But yeah, once we got inside, we were greeted warmly with your very friendly staff and the cutest dog ever.
I will tell you, this was the courthouse for St. Helena. Judge Snowden resided here.
Wait, the official courthouse?
Yes. If you had a parking ticket or a slight infraction downtown, maybe at one of the cantinas, you would have ended up here the next day.
Which is weird because we think of a courthouse as like a huge monolithic stone white building.
Similar.
Okay.
But what I think
Are
is
there
interesting.
stocks somewhere in this building? Like if one of us gets unwieldy, is there an old jail you can throw us in?
No, just the restroom.
But there's also next to a church. So once you've sinned, you can go next door and repent, theoretically, right? I guess if you know things about
the
those.
church.
No.
And if you guys want to pull those mics up a little bit closer to yourself, thank you. And thank you for not tapping or putting your phone down on this table.
Brian,
this actually made a huge difference.
Listeners don't need to hear that. That should have been done.
It's called ASMR, Bart.
Oh, ASMR. Okay.
So you guys were obviously...
Joel, you don't know what ASMR is either, do you?
I'm guessing that's what happens before the...
Wait, you have kids. You have kids about the right age to know what that is, too.
ASMR are the weird fetish videos of like someone chewing with the mic really close to his... and like people get really into it. Personally, I find it appalling, but that's because I'm old.
This is where I wish this was on video, just to see Joel looking at James.
We've got James on video.
That's just kind of how Joel looks at me.
Okay, so you guys were hanging out with Joel Gott today, and those of you that know him, or maybe don't know him, we had a little inside connection with Joel, not just through James, but Joel actually used to be Bart's intern at Kenwood. Wait a minute. Was he your intern?
He was my intern because the first day he showed up, I was handed him, and all I was told is this is a winemaker's son, and to work his ass off.
They actually said that to you?
Yeah, Mike Lee did. He goes, "Yeah, this is my friend Carrie's son." And he's
Is that like when a
winemaker.
cop goes to jail and everyone finds out?
Yeah.
Well, no, but Joel, everybody like looked at you when you came in. They went, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Sorry, I forgot. Oh no, we do swear on this podcast.
It's your podcast.
And I mean, it was just that thing. When you get a new guy, you always wonder, like, does he know what he's doing? Are we starting him from the beginning?
Well, and how old was he? What time are we talking about?
You were 18 or 19 years old, right?
18.
Yeah.
It would have been August of 1989.
Yeah. And he definitely like Joel came, like, he obviously wanted to work. He was there. He was fired up. We had heard that you'd been around wine and stuff, but no one really knew anything. I think the Mexican guys all looked at you and kind of said, "Oh, great, another white guy.
I'll be here 2 weeks."
Yeah, and Joel proceeded to work his ass off.
Yeah,
and so for those of us that do know Joel, I'm not surprised at all that you have built this company into this and all the things you guys do, because I look at my son who's 16, and I don't know your son very well, but I know my son, I look at him and I think in 2 years, like him going into that situation, he wouldn't even know what the thing to do with work was. And Joel came at it and he did whatever we asked. And he did it with enthusiasm and a little bit of snarkiness and
overfilled barrels.
Yeah. I mean, there were definitely some things.
Forklifts into walls.
Right.
Trucks into the rear ends of other trucks.
Yeah. But we all did those things. Like we all spilt grapes on the highway.
I might have spilled a little bit more.
Yeah.
But Joel, your family, I mean, you're like 5th generation wine industry, correct?
Yeah. So realistically, I mean, like in true just wine production, right? It's 3. So myself, my dad, my grandfather, because my grandfather worked at Hubline, which at the time was Inglenook. And so he was like general manager there. But, I mean, I don't quite know exactly what that meant in, 1965. And then great grandfather was out in Lodi. They were twins, and they were growing asparagus, grapes, nuts. They had a generator. They sold power to the town of Lodi, and they made the fancy stuff out there called brandy. So they were fermenting, distilling, and there was one generation before that doing the same thing on the East Coast. So 5 is a stretch, but it does work.
Okay. So wait a minute. So how did they make their way to Lodi, and were they making Angelica out there?
I don't know what they were actually making. I know that because as they came over, they had a business where I don't know how, like technically what you call it, but they were helping transfer people from the Midwest.
Smugglers, that's what we call it.
Yeah. So they were smuggling.
Coyote.
Human trafficking.
Yeah. All right. So and they were bringing them to the town of Genoa, which is on the backside of like below Sparks or below Reno.
Mm-hmm.
And then somehow, I guess in the spring and the summer, they got them over the Sierras and you ended up in the Central Valley and you got a job.
Right.
And so then they relocated to the Lodi area, and that's where they started gathering land, and somebody sold them a generator, so they started selling power to the town of Lodi.
Which I don't understand how you do that. What, you all of a sudden you have a generator and you start. What do you tell your neighbor if you want to plug in? I'll charge you $10 for the next week or something.
Imagine what that extension cord looked like in 1880.
It's a very long extension cord,
right? I mean, so that's actually just Lodi geeking, right? That's where we need Tegan because he would know the actual story. I don't know bits of it.
And have 3 books on it.
The reason that Lodi owns its own power company, right? It's a municipal of just the town, is because Fred and Ed Carey, who were great grandfathers, sold the city the power generation plant and the natural gas distribution in like the 1910s. And I'm sure I got all the dates wrong.
Yeah.
But they own the power thing. And that's why they needed that, because they were making wine and making brandy.
Okay.
And growing asparagus. Let's not leave asparagus out of it, because that just is solid.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's asparagus.
Speaking of, do you guys want, I didn't give you guys dump buckets or spit cups. Would you like either?
You make good wine. We're totally fine.
We're good. We'll just limit ourselves. And, speaking of asparagus, let's talk about this first wine that we're drinking here.
So we like Sauvignon Blanc a lot, right? And I would say that over my lifetime of drinking wine by gallons of wine, I've drank more Sauvignon Blanc than anything else. A lot of love comes from obviously the style of Sauvignon Blanc, right? That crisp, acidic, sweet, sour, savory finish, right? To me, that's like such a great, refreshing drink, right? And when you mix in wine, right, it's even better. And so started at Kenwood, right? Always loved the Sauvignon Blanc. It's one of Mike Lee's great wines that he made there. And then my wife Sarah and I, when she was at UC Davis, and then Joseph Phelps, there was a lot of Sauvignon Blanc making and drinking. And we started our own brand. We started making wine in 1996, and in 1998 2008 was our first vintage of Sauvignon Blanc. So it's just been something we love, and we geek out on Sauvignon Blanc. We we buy grapes from 38 different vineyards across the state of California.
Wow.
A bunch of them are organically farmed. 2 of them went into this wine. So this is a 2022 Sauvignon Blanc from San Ynez Valley that the grapes were farmed organically and certified. So we made 1,000 cases of this as a test for the guys at Whole Foods.
And how much is this on the shelf at Whole Foods?
Roughly, we all know that wine pricing never really equals what we all think it does. So it's supposed to be $17. You might find it for $21 or $13.99. Yeah. I mean, like, it makes no sense. But.
I want to go back a little bit before we get into this. I want to go back a little bit to your dad, because if he was, call it the first, like, jump in, was started Montevina or?
Yeah. So worked for my grandfather, and then was one of the first employees at Sterling with Rick Foreman, Dave Abreu, and Mike Collini.
Right.
In 1969, when there was no castle on the hill,
right.
ski lift to get up there.
Right.
And then my mom's dad, Walter, and my dad bought a ranch up in Amador County. That was 454 acres and about 100 and some odd acres of Headbrook and Zinfandel that was planted in 1880 something through 1900. And they started a winery there and planted another 100 acres of vineyards on that ranch. That became Montevina, started in 1972. My dad left Montevina when my grandfather bought him out in 1983. And then, so that was the original, like, and I always look back to it, like, there's some amazing pictures of my parents as being like good hippies and my brother and I running around, without clothes on in mud in the vineyards, in the 70s. So it was like the ultimate 70s winemaking in Amador County, high octane Zinfandel. Fun fact, our distributor at Montevina in the 70s was Kermit Lynch.
Wow.
So
crazy.
It's hard to believe that they carried California wines. And so then he left there in 83, and then he went down to Lawrence Winery in San Luis Obispo, and they changed that brand from Lawrence Winery to Corbett Canyon. And then was there, and then that was 83, and in 85 or 6, then Seagram's hired him because they'd bought the Coca-Cola wineries,
right?
And they hired him to run Monterey Vineyards from 80, let's call it 6, 7, 8, and then they promoted him to run their West Coast winery operations. So that was Sterling. There wasn't Mum yet, some other wineries, but it was the big dominant one was Sterling, and then Monterey Vineyards. And then he and a guy named Guy Treveau, that was another Seagram's guy from France. They started Mum Champagne for Seagram's, built the winery. Then my dad left there in 97. And as a consultant ever since, helping people get in and out of the wine business.
And it's interesting because your dad, I mean, he does it start to finish, like helps people find properties, plant the vineyard, build the winery, and help them learn how to make wine or help bring in a crew for that. Correct.
Yeah, it's because, like, for somebody wanting to get into business, help them figure out what they really want. And then buy the property, build the dream, or they're already building the dream, but they don't know how to fill the back end of it. Like, how do we make the wine? Or like, oh my God, we made wine. Now what do we do? That's what you're going to say.
So he has to come in and kind of do the reality check for these people a lot of times.
Well, and that seems weird to talk about now, because I mean, how often does that happen now, where someone says they want to come in, get into the business?
In Napa and Sonoma Valley all the time. And
really?
I think the outlying areas, Amador County is a big one, Central Coast is a big one. I mean, the whole California wine industry, right? If you made a bunch of money selling, I don't know what.
Widgets.
Yeah, widgets and sand or something. And then, you want to do something fun, and most people love wine, and it's passionate, and you get to live on a ranch and build a winery. And so there's a lot of people that have that dream.
See, I just would have thought that opportunity was available much more in the past, and now it seems like fewer opportunities for that and more money than ever.
Well, I think the real difference is that like when we started making our wines in 1996, right, the cost of entry for scrappy young people was much lower. Cost of entry today is much higher. And so to do what we did now, I mean, I think would be not impossible, but it'd be much more difficult. We were kind of at the tail end of inexpensive custom crush, inexpensive barrels. I mean, all of it at the
But
time.
there's also a whole demographic and generation now, people who grew up in the tech industry who like started jobs at $300,000 a year and like can afford to live in the Bay Area and are retiring in their mid 40s or getting packages. Even now, like all the tech layoffs are getting these huge packages. And like, what am I going to do? What's my passion? I love wine. I'm going to go make wine. And then, it doesn't sound rational that you can buy land at $1 million an acre, but there's people, in their 40s who can. And who are just like, we're going to bootstrap it and treat it like tech, which is you go in and just whatever, blood, sweat, and tears. And
hire good people, I guess. Yeah.
So you worked at Kenwood for 3 years.
Wait, but how did that happen? So was it your father basically saying?
Yeah, and how did you end up at Kenwood as opposed to? I mean, your dad was obviously very connected. Why Kenwood?
Yeah.
Because he thought Mike would be tolerant of having me work there. In high school, I didn't really have the ambition to go to college.
You were the son Mike never had.
Exactly.
And always wanted.
I was on loan. And I didn't really want to go to college. The passion was I wanted to work in a winery. And somehow my dad narrowed down to Mike Lee. And it might have been just they saw each other at a wine tasting. And that was only yes he got. But Sonoma Valley was important. Napa was important to be up north at that time. My dad was running Sterling, so he was living part-time up here. And it was just like a perfect mixture. I to be honest with you, I credit my time at Kenwood as shaping what I have today, because it taught me the love of the industry, the outside vineyards, the winery stuff. I still reference back in my mind my time at Kenwood. It was such an impactful 24 months.
I mean, and you were happiest driving the tractor, I think, as I remember.
Oh yeah.
Like whenever you could find a reason to go out into the vineyard and not clean the drains, you were there. But that's when you were the happiest. I mean, and you used to talk about that. Like that's what you really wanted to do. Chewy, I know, always loved having you around. And, so anyway, it was a fun time. And you're right. Kenwood was an impactful place. Like we were doing pretty cool stuff. We were making more Sauvignon Blanc than most other people. And, it was a cool time.
It was a perfect moment in time, especially for somebody who was 18 years old who could digest it all and walk around with it. And so, that really shaped my idea of what the wine industry was, shaped my idea of what winemaking was, shaped my idea of what could be done.
Well, in a small enough place where you can see personal relationships, but also a big enough production probably wise that you could see how, you can scale a business model, right?
Yeah, and we saw environmental disaster that year, 1989. It rained 3 inches in
September 15th.
Oh, not the earthquake you're talking about.
Oh, the earthquake was later, right? Because that was October.
Right.
Yeah. So we had 3 inches of rain, and then we had an earthquake. Yeah. So I saw it. I saw it all. Yeah.
And so the question I had is, was wine when you were young? Was wine part of the conversation? Like at dinner, did you guys drink wine?
Yeah. It was very wine centric. Because I went to high school in Carmel, and there was most dinners included wine. Or I distinctly remember trying to blend, make rosé. Right. We blend a little bit of Zin into some Chardonnay, and then you had rosé, and that was always fun and goofy, and I guess we're not really supposed to say it, but it was like when you're 16 or 17 and you're screwing around making something that tastes pretty good.
Right. Yeah. So then after that, because I think this is all important to how it shapes kind of what you guys have done with your company, is your parents bought the market, Palisades Market.
Correct.
In Calistoga.
Us, yeah. So they lent my brother and I $4,000 to buy an existing grocery store that was going out of business. So basically the $4,000 bought the inventory, and they were just happy to give the lease to somebody else to pay the monthly rent. So that was my crash course in business. And that was 1993. That was here you guys go. There's not enough money to pay yourself. So you just have to work the whole time to make payroll for the other 4 employees. And that was, a little wine section, beer, bottled waters, a little teeny hippie grocery section, a big produce section, a delicatessen, and here, learn quick.
But it was a different delicatessen.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, it was pretty straightforward, but then we learned wow, we don't like that potato salad, so let's make better potato salad. But how the hell do you make potato salad? It wasn't like you went onto Google and I want German potato salad. I had to go rip it off somewhere else.
Right.
So it was very informative, and it was great. And that's how I learned about selling wine, because I'd have these wine guys come by was a guy who worked for a distributor named Kelly. And I'd be like, hey, I think I can trust you. Explain to me this. Like, how do I mark it up? But if I buy it for 10, I sell it for 15. Is that like all of them? They always put $5 on. He's like, no, that's not the way it works. And so it was a lot of those conversations. And we realized quickly what you bought. If it didn't sell, you were stuck with that inventory. If you had too many employees on, you couldn't make payroll.
And was your dad over your shoulder, or he was probably busy, right?
No, he was busy. He was running Seagram's West Coast wine division. So no, it was like figure it out on your own. My mom worked with us. She was the cheesemonger. Right. Not really the best in customer service. Sometimes people get racked on their fingers, like, don't touch the cheese. Cheese Nazi. And then, we grew up in that business. And so that was 1993, 1996, 95, I met Sarah. 96, Sarah and I started making wine. 97, we got married. 99, we opened up the restaurant, which at the time was Taylor's Refresher, but then we changed the name to Gott's Roadside 10 years later. 2002-3, we started Three Thieves with Charles Beeler and Roger Scamania.
Okay, and we gotta talk about that.
Slow the roll there for a second. Where did you meet your wife? Number one.
Yep, I met my wife in town of Calistoga. I bought tomatoes from her mom for our produce section, and she always said, "I have the loveliest daughter. You should really meet her." And
for real?
Yeah, and I was thinking, like, no way, lady. And then she was telling Sarah, "I met the loveliest boy. You should meet Mom. I have enough friends." And then we met. They were at there was a restaurant called Catahoula, which was the happening place, Jan Birnbaum's restaurant in Calistoga. And I met her one night in there and ran home, showered, so I didn't look like a bum. Went back in, tried to strike up a conversation. Actually got somewhere. Remember, there was no texting. There was no dating app, right? Yeah. So I had to leave it all on the table there, and I got a date out of it. I got a call back, more importantly.
Right. Wait, so she was just working for her mom at the...
No, I'm sorry. At that, she'd gone to UC Davis for viticulture enology. She was the enologist at Joseph Phelps.
Yeah. Okay.
So then we were boyfriend-girlfriend. A year later, I convinced her. I said, hey, you know how to make wine. You went to school for it. I know how to, I think. My dad works at Sterling. My roommate, Rudy Zudima, works at a custom crush place. We can make some wine. She's like, what, are you crazy? And then I had those credit cards that came in the mail, and they used to come with a check in the 90s. So I paid for the first the first two vintages with the checks that came.
You're not joking.
No. Everything you're not supposed to do. 20% interest. Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, okay. Okay, so what was the first thing that you decided to buy? And just get it all out on the table. What you guys are talking about is a business model that a lot of people follow now, but maybe wasn't the most popular thing at the time, which is don't own a thing, buy fruit from other people, use a crush pad facility where you can put in work orders, have the wine bottled, and then somehow find a distributor and get them to sell the wine, because who the hell are you?
Right. Exactly.
Right.
You just nailed the whole business model.
Right. So
tell it better than I do.
So then what do you decide to buy at first and say, hey, let's
I've always loved Zinfandel.
Yeah.
I grew up on a ranch that had Zinfandel. At the time, Turley, like it is today, was just this like amazing, iconic brand. At Kenwood, we made some incredible Zinfandel from some incredible ranches. And to me, that was like the holy grail of red wine when you're 24 years old, right? What else do you want to drink? High octane Zinfandel from California, right? And so the best place I knew to go and buy Zinfandel was up in Amador County. There was a grape grower named Tom Dillion that had this incredible old vineyard on Shenandoah School Road. So I called Tom in the old days of called him 4 times until I got the answering machine, left him a message, got buy some fruit, and he said, all right, I'll sell you 5 tons. And then I had to ask, like, how much will that be?
Right.
So then I rented a truck, and with our controller, who's on the other side of this wall, 28 years ago, and she drove me down the rental truck place, and I rented a flatbed truck and borrowed some bins from a friend of mine's custom crush facility and drove up to Amador County. And when we determined the fruit was ready, and that was the beginning of it.
So wait, had Sarah ever made Zinfandel before?
Yeah, at Gloria Frere, she had made Zin. She made a lot of Syrah when she worked down in Australia as an intern.
Okay.
And at Joseph Phelps, I made Zin. So she had seen it, but how hard could it be?
Right.
Just grapes.
Yeah.
And it's from Amador.
Yeah.
You can't screw that up, right?
Well, then where was it? So where were you making the wine at first?
There was a custom crush facility called Biennisserie, and our friend Rudy Zudima was making wine there for. I can't remember the name of the brand. It'll come back to me in a minute.
Yeah.
You'll have to slice that in later.
But
sorry, go ahead, Bart.
no, I would say, was that the area where Chris Dearden was also at?
Yeah, Chris Dearden. Yeah. Chris was the GM of the facility. Yeah,
right. And Chris I'm working on getting him on the show because he just opened up his winery down in Carneros.
Oh, wow. Right on.
Yeah.
That's going to be the worst Custom Crush client ever.
Yeah. Okay.
So you guys are making the wine. You got 5 tons. So that's a fair amount of wine to sell, right? And so what is
300 cases? I should have brought a bottle of it. It's still actually 96 tastes great.
Well, I was just thinking,
I didn't know we'd be tasting wine. I guess I should have assumed.
Well, then Phil just gave me 3 bottles of Kenwood too, and I think one was an 89 Zin. There's like a 91 Merlot.
Jack London.
Yeah,
I'm so wishing I would have brought those. But so you're thinking, okay, where are we going to sell this wine, or did you have some idea of
zero? Honestly, like I was more passionate about making it, and I had my little grocery store, and I could have gone through 300 cases over like 5 years or something, right? So I wasn't. that was never the focus, right? My focus was I wanted the wine, and I also thought we'd have a brand name, right? We'd be something fancy like Quintessa or something like that, right? But by the time a year later that I was wanting to make the second vintage, I needed to bottle it, so I needed a label. I'd filled out all the ABC, alcohol beverage control paperwork as Joel Gott Wines, but I figured, there'd be a DBA. But by the time I needed to bottle it, I didn't have time. And a lady named Tina Ficara that worked at Chuck House Design in Santa Rosa, she shopped in our grocery store, and I was like, Tina, I need a label, like my name on the top, the variety down there, and I scribbled out 9.5 by 11 piece of paper, and then like all the government shit on the bottom. And there it is.
That's pretty much still it.
Wow.
Yeah. It's very close to the original label. And as simple as it sounds, right? It was just like out of pure desire and need, I got exactly what I needed, which was like the perfect thing. And then Suzanne Chambers shopped in our grocery store, and we bought wine from Chambers and Chambers. And our sales guy was Dave Dennis. I don't know if you guys know Dave.
Sure.
And so Dave was working also for John Whitloffer at All Seasons Wine Shop. And I was learning about wine, buying wine there when I'd scratched together $27 for something cool. And then Suzanne agreed to sell the first vintage. And in the second vintage, we got a lot of press from the Wine Spectator. And it was a really good vintage, 97. Like all those wines were like ripping great for 5 years.
Yeah.
Right. The other way.
Yeah.
And then that just started the snowball effect of like, oh my God, this works. Yep. And then there was some guy that was working in our wine section at the store as we got bigger. And we had a little office over in an old train car next door, the one that John Charles Boisset owns now. And this guy came over, he's like, hey, Joel, that's our wine guy. He's like, there's some important wine guy over there, and he wants to know where you are. I'm like, I'm not here. Just tell him I'm not here. He's like, nah, but I think he knows something, and I think he's important. I'm like, just get rid of him. So I go over, and this guy's quizzing me. He's like, oh, I'm a distributor in New York. I'm like, oh, great. I have a distributor in New York already. And I didn't know I didn't have anything there. I'm like, it's called, and the only place I'd ever heard of was Sherry Lehman. I'm like, it's Sherry Lehman. He's like, that's a store. I'm like, no, but they employ it, right? Yeah, I had no idea. I just wanted to try to get rid of it, and it turned out to be Michael Skurnick. Great importer, great distributor, great guy. All the Skurnicks are amazing. And so anyhow, they sold our wine, did the first vintage. I think the first vintage we shipped them, they ordered the 97 and I shipped them the 98. So like perfectly on par. Yeah. And then we became fast friends over the next couple decades. And that was really like between Chambers and Skurnick, it's what taught me that the brand had some value in retail and in restaurants, and our wine quality was more interesting at our price point than our competitive set because of Sarah's winemaking that she had gone to school for and was learning at Phelps. And as she grew in her talent, right, it just benefited our wines. And
So, but your wines have always been focused on good pricing, high quality. Mm-hmm. You never tried to be the Napa Valley cab guy, you've always kind of left this as mostly California appellations, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Some specific things here and there. And earlier on, was that always the laser focus that it was, we're not going to.
I love value. right? And I always thought that, there was so much great wine being made. And I knew that, like, in the early days of Ridge in the early 90s when I had the grocery store, those Ridge wines were about $18 for, like, Geyserville. And man, I always thought that was like, that is rip-roaring, amazing wine for $18, right? And so to me, there was that value play was always something so important. And I loved going to Kermit Lynch and, like, you'd go down there and there'd be all the, like, the, $14 Provence rosé, and you're like, oh my God, I'm stealing this thing. And so to me, there was always a value. And I always learned that, when they got over $25 in our retail section, they sold, but not very often. And then, like, we would bring in, all the examples where the value stuff is what just fascinated me.
Yeah.
But was it, you guys started doing that because you were just able to buy fruit that was less expensive and you found that was a good way for you to do business? Or was it that was actually the thought process from the beginning, was let's get something at the end of the day, you knew the price point that you wanted to hit on the shelf?
I knew the price point. I never costed a wine probably the first 10 years.
Wow.
So I knew that where I wanted to be, like 18 for Cab, 15 for Zin, 13 for SB. Like, honestly, that was in my mind was that those were the price points that I wanted to be at. And what's crazy is today we're still in those same price points. And I want the costs have gone through the roof.
Yeah.
And I mean, the other thing that I think is important here is this is not like, you're not just going out and buying bulk wine.
No,
you're contracting with these different growers.
196 growers for this vintage.
Yeah. And that's crazy. Yeah. And then you're taking delivery of them at your own custom crush places with your own staff.
Yeah.
I mean, you've obviously picked those custom crush places for a reason, but you have a staff member there, keeping an eye on things. It's not you driving all over the state or the country.
No, it's actually, but Bart, it's kind of fun because, like, for maybe some of the listeners, right, they won't appreciate this, but, like, in a production standpoint, it's really the early day model of, as we grew, we didn't get bigger tanks. We didn't get bigger in a vineyard. We just added more vineyards on, and we had more fermenters at Custom Crush. So we make wine at 7 wineries right now in the state of California. Custom Crush places, all amazing staffs, and we've worked with them for a long time. And then we're a team of 27 people that all we do is make wine and grow grapes, right? And so we're spread across the state. We have amazing winemaking team, female dominant. My wife Sarah and Megan and Jill and Elizabeth are the core there. And then Dustin, who you guys probably met on the way in, he's running a lot of the small lot fermentation. Taryn Hansen from Cal Poly, she runs our grower rep viticulture department. So we have this amazing dream team. And then some of the guys that worked with Sarah Joseph Phelps back in the 90s run our cellar department that oversee the custom crush facilities. And then we actually have a brick and mortar winery down in Yountville on Hoffman Lane. And then other fun stuff in that is we have a partnership with Trinchero Family Estates, right? They make like 20 million cases of wine, and they do all of our distribution, marketing, and accounting. So the dream in our industry is not deal with distribution, marketing, and accounting. Right. And somehow we got the dream proposal, and we have this great joint venture. No. And so we're just this solo little team. Now I go out and I sell wine. We have some support staff in marketing. But realistically, all we focus on, and that's why, we're a big brand, right? Make wine in a lot of places all over the state, up in Oregon, Washington, Argentina, South France, and all those is run because all we focus on is wine. We don't worry about, if we didn't have the partnership with Trinchero, we'd probably be 150 people and be spread through HR meetings.
Does Trinchero have any input on the winemaking?
No, but we get to use some of their assets. Like, there is no better bottling line than like one of their huge brand new German Krone bottling lines. They have 4 of them. Right. You can't rent those things. You can't use them. And it's like seeing somebody go by in a Rolls Royce. You're like, oh, I'd like to drive that. And they're like, oh, hey, go take it for the weekend. Right. So we get to use their assets. They have an amazing facility here in downtown St. Helena that we do a lot of work at. Another great one in Paso Robles, a big facility where all the bottling is done out in the Lodi area. But we get to use their big boy toys, I like to say.
Yeah.
And they're amazing because it's a family-owned operation. So it's not like you're dealing with, nothing wrong with the big guys, right? But, it's a one answer.
Is that partnership what led to Three Thieves?
Oh, no. Three Thieves was just 3 jackasses. Okay. We were, you want me to go through the Three Thieves thing?
Well, and I want you to touch on the Tetra boxes also, because you guys were really doing that before. Mm-hmm. how long ago was that when you guys first launched that?
So we
just
launched
making you
it
talk how old you are, really.
Yeah. So we launched that in 2004. But when we launched it, we knew somebody else was coming out in front of us. So the first one was just photoshopped. So we just photoshopped it because we couldn't figure out how to make it correctly yet. We made that first vintage in Italy because we couldn't get it done here in the States. So the first wines were the 2003 vintage of Trebbiano. Right. You had a lot of Trebbiano,
right? Wait, the first Bandit was
yeah. They exploded and they leaked and they turned yellow, and it was not a good. But anyhow, that was kind of fun. So in 2000, in the late 90s and early 2000s, I knew Charles Bieler because he was selling his family's wines from Provence called Chateau Rutas. And so I'd see this crazy guy in a pink tuxedo at the Chambers events. I'm like, I got to know this guy. So Charles and I knew each other. Charles knew this guy named Roger Scomegno, who we thought owned Home Depot. Turned out he didn't own Home Depot. He owned Home Store. Wasn't kind of the same thing. So we figured he would finance it. So the two of those guys and another winemaker that we all know were going to start something called Three Kings. And we had lunch together. I'm like, well, that sounds pretty dumb. I want to make jug wine. And they're like, we like jug wine. Why don't we call it Three Thieves? And then that was literally that lunch at Hawthorne Lane in San Francisco became Three Thieves.
See, I thought it was Three Thieves because you get to steal from I thought it was Three Thieves because you guys got to steal from the best vineyards that Trinchero had.
No, but that's a really good way of saying it. That's probably some marketing.
That may or may not be something I heard Charles Bieler say once.
No, but honestly, that sounds like a Roger actually. So what it really was is it was a downturn in the market. Remember 01, 9/11, right? Luxury, everything went bottomed down, and the bulk wine market in Napa. I shouldn't say bulk. The wine market, the grape market in Napa, Sonoma. Just cratered. And so you could buy amazing Napa Valley cab for like $8 a gallon or less. People just had way too much inventory. The dot-com boom had popped. And so there was just this amazing opportunity to be able to go and buy bulk wine. So we were bottling Napa Cab, California Zin from amazing wineries, making these blends and putting in a 1 liter jug and selling it for $10.
But when you're doing that, are you thinking that that's going to be a daily wine drinker or an everyday consumer? Or are you thinking that I come from the restaurant business. So when I see those sizes of bottles, I'm thinking cooking wine. I'm thinking this is what we have in the kitchen to cook with. We're always looking for a great deal on what they called Chablis and Burgundy.
Yeah. It was such a novelty thing. We had these bright neon labels on them. It was like a bright orange was a Zin, a bright blue was the Napa Cab. That it was such a novelty item. And it was like the jug shop in San Francisco. The buyers there was Chuck. And so like they crushed it. We had amazing distribution. I mean, we're selling jug wine with Chambers and Chambers, like a luxury wine wholesaler. And so we had this incredible distribution. We had a novelty item that was like inexpensive and amazing. And it was like Milli Vanilli. It was like a flash in the pan. It lasted 3 years, but it got us almost bought by Constellation. Then we partnered with Trinchero. And then that led from jug wine to Tetra Pak wine to international wine, sourced wine to all these private labels. It was pretty incredible.
And where did the Showdown come in? Because the Showdown was, what, right? Do I have the name right?
The show.
But, different packaging. I mean, it used that kind of early American cowboy art. Yep. And how did that fit into this?
And the art was Hatch Show Print Press out of Nashville, right?
Right.
And that's an amazing, if you guys are ever in Nashville, you got to go to Hatch and see also woodblock lettering that are made into posters. That's where all the posters have been done for the music industry for decades. So that was another inspiration because the guys, Charles and Raj, right? They loved the art from there. So that wine was created by the art, the posters, which led to the label, which led to then hey, Joel, let's make some wine. I mean, that's how that project started. And we launched it at Aspen Food and Wine in probably 06, 07. Yeah, something like that. Wearing ridiculous cowboy wear and hats and about as goofy as possible.
So what was the most popular wine you think for the first 10 years of Joel Gott? Was it the Sauvignon Blanc?
No, is Cabernet by far. We still are more. We probably get more press on Sauvignon Blanc. Yeah. We sell more and are more known for making Cabernet. Like yesterday, I was in Phoenix and Scottsdale for the day selling wine, and it was all Cabernet conversation constantly. But everybody's drinking Sauvignon Blanc. It's a crazy, and it was hot down there too.
Okay, so on that note, to kind of go currently, we see headlines. There's no Sauvignon Blanc available. Sauvignon Blanc's huge.
Joel's taking it all.
Bart sold it to me.
Do you agree with that? I mean, are you seeing your Sauvignon Blanc sales solid and looking to expand? Is Cabernet still king out there? I mean, you're in the marketplace more than probably anybody we have on the show.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, if you just look at the sales data nationally, right? So Cabernet's still king, right? But there's other varieties coming up that are really pushing. I mean, red blends for a long time, the inexpensive, slightly sweet reds, those really took from the Zinfandel market. And Zinfandel is a much smaller category now. If you think about white wines, I mean, the amazing thing that Kendall Jackson did for our whole industry of getting people drinking Chardonnay from California, that has spurred off into coastal Chardonnays. It spurred off into this more unoaked style of Chardonnay that's out there now. And then Sauvignon Blanc, right? I mean, it's been around forever, and a lot of people made it really weird as Fumé Blanc and barrel fermented and oxidized. But with the rise of New Zealand, right? New Zealand made all of us, I believe, in California realize like, hey, our consumer wants something that's more acidic, fruit forward, savory, texture, mineral, Sancerre-like, right? In a blend. And I like to think California is a great piece somewhere between New Zealand and Sancerre, right? You get the green, like amazing grassiness out of Monterey County, but we get the minerality out of Lake and San Ynez Valley, and we get this big oily Sauvignon Blanc here in Napa, and Sonoma's like the bubble gum, right? So there's
a shot. I think that was a shot.
No, it is. But it's like, I mean, Russian River Sauvignon Blanc's amazing, right? It's like fruit driven. I mean, it's the dream. I mean, I wish I had hundreds of acres of it, right? Could you imagine? Right. Can you imagine what it would cost now? But so to answer your question, I think that the Sauvignon Blanc trend right now, it's one of the few varieties in the whole index that's really growing. It's growing at plus 15%, whereas the whole category is down 4%, right?
Right.
So we got a consumer that likes it. We should all be focused on it. Sauvignon Blanc is in short supply. Like I said, we buy from 38 different vineyards across the state. Long-term relationships, buy a lot of Sauvignon Blanc. Hopefully all of it makes our blends every year. Right. We're constantly looking for more. We're constantly doing pre-plant contracts. We're constantly encouraging people to plant more. Now, the problem is if we all owned vineyards, we're going to get paid more for Cabernet that's easier to grow, and you get more per ton. Right. So what incentivizes a grower to plant Sauvignon Blanc? That's a conversation that's hard. That's the reality of Sauvignon Blanc market. Yeah. And like every variety, there's a lot of great stuff growing in California. There's also a lot of stuff that kind of go like, maybe it's not so great.
No.
Right.
So right. What was the first vineyard?
Stuff that smells and tastes like onions. Right? I mean, there's a place for it. A little bit's good, but a lot is weird. Go ahead, Mike.
What was the first vineyard that you actually purchased?
Purchased is in an area called Borton. But it doesn't mean anything to you. It's as you go up into the foothills above Lodi, you go up several hundred feet in elevation, and there's these big rolling alluvial fans as the glaciers pushed all the dirt off and rock off the Sierras, and it stopped at the base of the Central Valley, and it's this huge boulders. It's like Chateauneuf, right? It's all these river boulders. And so we have a 200-acre vineyard there.
And it was already planted when you took it over?
No.
So you bought the property.
Planted it, yeah.
Brought a whole team in there.
And what is it planted to?
Cab Franc.
Cab Franc. And that's something?
Yeah. And why?
Because to be able to make $18 Cabernet in California, you got to blend. Remember, that's from 7 counties, right?
Yeah.
So, I can list them, but I bore you guys. But, we need some fruit that we control the cost of.
Yeah.
And, if you buy it on the valley floor, it just doesn't have the same texture profile, tannin structure, sweet fruit, right? And so we needed something that we could control it. We get like 4 tons of the acre out there, and it's like super concentrated, amazing. The temperature shift there is pretty dramatic because you're up at high enough elevation that we get the cold wind or cold air draining out of the Sierras, but we get the warm temperatures of the Central Valley. Soil structure is really good, and we have a lot of water. We have a 2,400 gallon minute well out there. It's crazy.
Wow.
So,
and then we also have them over in like on Calistoga Road overlooking Santa Rosa, you know where the TV tower is. That's one of our favorite vineyards there.
Just real quick on these two Sauvignon Blancs, the made from organic grapes is all San Ynez Valley.
Correct.
This is a California appellation. What is it about these two wines that you love?
Well, what I love is our California one, because then you get to see the influence of having Monterey in it, which gives you that New Zealand texture. You get Napa, Sonoma, which are heavier, oilier, more fruit driven. Right. You get Lake County, which is like mineral based style, much hotter daytime but colder temperatures, volcanic rock. San Ynez, which we love, a majority of our Sauvignon Blanc comes from San Ynez. You also get kind of some of the cool Delta fruit. So by having these 6 different counties, I think it's a more complete wine in the California. The organic we just wanted to do as a test to see what does the consumer think of an organically grown. Right. I mean, it's a mouthful of rocks, right? Organically grown grapes made into Sauvignon Blanc. I don't know how you're supposed to say it. So everybody would just call it organic. But I want to see how that does. Like, what will the consumer think of that? It might be an introductory closeout, right? It might be here for 15 minutes and we did 1,000 cases and voila. Right.
So you're not doing it with all the wines. It's no. Right now it's just that.
No, but there's organically grown grapes in almost every single one of our wines because there's so many vineyards that are grown that way. Yeah. Plus, we live in California, right, where there's not that many, smoke taints, worse things happen to our industry in a long time. Right.
So where do you, I'm sure you guys have data on this, where do most of the wines go in the United States that you make? Are most of them sold in California?
California centric, right? Where California is our biggest market, followed by kind of the big 4, right? So the big 4 are Texas, Florida, New York, Illinois. So, that's natural wine data. As I think what's it called, indexing. Yeah. That's in general, those are the biggest population states, the biggest wine drinking states.
And then I'm assuming you have a wine club.
No wine club. We got rid of that probably in just for sake of conversation, say about 2008 or so.
Okay. So how much do you sell direct to consumer?
None. 0.
Wait a minute. You have a tiny little vineyard that was originally owned by Leslie Rudd or owned by the Martinellis.
Edge Hill. Edge Hill.
So what are you doing with that fruit?
We're not doing anything with it right now. We so that was kind of neat because Leslie Rudd planted that with Paul Draper from Ridge. Is the story I'm told? I wasn't there, so I don't know. But it's a Syrah, Petite Syrah, Grenache, and Mourvedre. And there's a little bit of Alicante. And there's 6 Alicante vines. Right. It's about all you need in that size. It's a 5-acre vineyard. So that's we fermented those grapes last year.
Wait, but what are you doing with it?
It'll come out on a label at some point. We're trying to see if we can get the Bart Hansen trademark. We to be honest with you, we don't know exactly what we'll do with those grapes from that property. I'm going to be in Edge Hill. They historically called it mixed blacks. Mm-hmm. We own the Edge Hill trademark, but we're thinking that we'll come up with a like a sub label that'll be like the super creative stuff. We go to amazing Grenache, Sarah's dad's ranch out in Knights Valley. We also have Syrah out there. We have all sorts of great cherry wines around.
And that's all at a higher price point ultimately?
Yeah, eventually. Yeah. But not too high. I mean, I'm not want to play in the really expensive stuff.
So sorry, maybe I'm not understanding. So you're going to make those wines, but then they'll go out in the distribution network and be sold at maybe different stores than some of the other wines.
Hey man, I hope you find it over in Oliver's, right? You live in Sonoma?
I live in Cotati and we have an Oliver's, yeah.
So hopefully you'll buy some Edge Hill red wine blend over there that is Zinfandel based in 2 years.
Okay. Because Edge Hill, that's a fairly new property for you guys, right?
It's oldest 3-story gravity fed stone winery in Napa County, 1864. We just bought it at the very end of 21.
Okay. So it's new to you guys.
Yeah, new to us.
I was going to ask you to talk about the property, but I think you did. Was it the Martinelli family that owned it originally?
No, it was Martini.
Damn it. Close, but not quite.
Yeah. So it was originally built by General Keys that ran Fort Mason in 1864, 3-story gravity-fed winery. And in 1880, a gentleman named, and I can't remember his name right now, but he patented the vacuum still, and he built distillery number 209 in the country there. So there's a Stone distillery there. There's a gin brand that we didn't buy, but it's called 209.
I was going to say that has nothing to do with it.
Okay. That's where that was started. And so there's a Stone distillery. I wish we had time to go over there. You guys would love it. It's,
Next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that all still intact? That's all still intact.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, after this, I'm going on a great Zoom call to talk about something else. But if you guys are still around in an hour, I could drive you guys over there. It's like literally Disneyland.
I've just seen video of it. It looks like a beautiful spot, and then everything is kind of gobelet, or I don't know if you've changed the way you're. Okay.
No. So there's this beautiful Big Stone Winery built in 1864. The Rudds own the property. They bought it from the Martinis in 1999. They did an amazing job, literally stone by stone, rebuilding the Stone Winery, 3-story tall, huge thing. Looks like gray stone over here or Farniente. And then the distillery, the same thing. They rebuilt it stone by stone. We got an underground cave winery there that was drilled in behind the stone building. So
wait, are you planning on moving into this place?
No, why would you want to live at a winery? Bad habits.
I mean, it sounds like it's a pretty cool property.
Yeah, it's really amazing. It's one of the great properties in Napa Valley.
But it's completely functioning. All those things that you were just talking about are functioning.
So the winery, we are in the final phases of finishing the project of the winery. So what has to happen there is like the refrigeration has to go in.
Yeah.
The plaster is still yet to be finished on the walls in the cave. I think that's about it. Okay. We got to buy an air compressor.
So that'll be a place that people can actually come and visit and taste wine?
Yes.
Nice. Okay.
So, yeah, but that's probably 5 years from now by the time we're ready for that.
Right.
Because we got to make all these wines. We got to have them all ready there. It's complicated.
Right. Let's talk about the Grenache that we just opened.
So this was started in 2010. This is Chateau Grenache from Maury, south of France. As if you're driving from, Provence and you're on your way to see a soccer game in Barcelona, you drive right through Perpignan. If you take a right there and you go into the Pyrenees, that's where Maury is. Maury was Grenache planted in the 1800s to make fortified sweet wine. Dave Finney of Prisoner and Orange Swift and Saldo fame and everything he does. He said, Joel, you got to come to France with me. I found this amazing place with 100-year-old Grenache vines coming out of the woodwork. So I went over there with him. We started this in 2019. Shatter is a viticulture term when the wind blows or the rain comes. It knocks the flowers off clusters of grapes that are in bloom, and your cluster is now half the size. And so shatter is a term that we all use in our industry to say that we're missing a bunch of berries on our cluster of grapes. And so Dave thought it was a great name. Then we started making
especially
the wine
for Grenache.
And then so Dave still operates over there. He has 300 acres of Grenache. It's mind-boggling territory.
He got real excited when he landed there. I mean, I talked to him about the whole story, and you never know what's fact and what's fiction with Dave and his legendary stories. But kind of landed at night and then woke up in the morning and looked out and went, "Oh my God!" And I think the one thing his wife told him was, "Do not do anything without talking to me first." And he came home and said, "We bought a vineyard." And
then he accidentally built a winery.
Yeah. Whoops.
I think the winery's amazing. Yeah. I mean, it's like modern Bordeaux style winery.
Yeah.
So anyhow, and then when Dave sold Orange Swift, Charles Beeler came in and replaced Dave in this project because Dave had too many commitments with his Orange Swift wines. So Charles and I now make the wine over there. Charles Beeler, who makes Beeler Rosé. So he's over in Provence all the time. So he runs the winemaking show over there. And then Dustin on our team here runs the winemaking show here for them. So we ferment it there, stabilize it.
No.
This is a winery that was built during World War II in the German occupation. No refrigeration. We ship it over here in the winter when it's cold, and then we get it here, and then we put it in barrels.
Wait a minute. So it's not flying; it's shipping.
Shipping, yeah, boat.
Okay. Huh.
It's a long ride.
It's way better than ship it in glass, right? Environmentally, right? You can ship double the amount of wine because glass weighs about as much as the wine in the bottle.
Yeah.
So environmentally, it's the right way to do it. You remember waterbeds from the 70s, 80s, right?
I had one.
Think about a really big waterbed in a refrigerated shipping container, and they're like 4 feet deep, and that's how we ship them over.
Okay. Wait, and so still doing it that way?
Oh, yeah.
And so how many cases of this a year? Roughly.
I should know. 2,500. I'm going to say 27 something in this.
I was more, is it like 2,000 cases or is it 20,000 cases?
No. We'd love to have it be 20,000 cases. There's just not enough grapes.
Yeah. Enough grapes available.
Yeah. I mean, well, Dave owns most of the grapes, so it's really what will Uncle Dave spare for us. Get Dave pretty loaded and be like, hey, Dave, no, last night, man, you said.
It's delicious.
Thanks.
It's very Grenache.
I feel like I should have been more prepared for you guys to come here. I mean, James probably put in the footnote of the text, like, we're going to taste. We should probably go to Edge Hill. We should probably go to the winery. Damn it.
I didn't know about Edge Hill, or I'd have brought more cameras, but I'll be back.
I thought we were talking about skateboarding.
We might have been. Damn it. Or mountain biking.
No, mountain biking. Are you guys mountain bikers?
But Bart is a biker. No, not
Bart
myself.
and I are doing chef cycle in a few weeks.
Oh, wow. Well, next time you guys come over, let's go mountain biking.
Yeah.
We have a crazy network of trails here in St. Helena. St. Helena is some of the best mountain biking in Napa County.
A lot of unknown trails, from what I hear.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like unadvertised trails.
Yeah.
Right. And wait, we heard rumors.
That you and Gary formerly of Cliff Bar, are doing some trail networks here.
Gary is an amazing person, has done amazing things along with a couple other people here in town for donating some of the money to create some of the incredible mountain biking that's the county parks.
Cool.
So yeah, Dan's Wild Ride being the king. If you guys haven't rode in Dan's, it's like probably the best thing in Napa County.
Wow. Cool.
It's about as good as mountain biking trails come.
All right. Well, what time is your Zoom call?
3:15. It was at 3, but I keep pushing it off.
Okay, so then tell us what are some things out there that you want to do that you maybe haven't had the opportunity to, or grapes that you kind of want to play around with, or other businesses maybe that you want to get in that you're not in?
I think what's exciting in the wine business right now is when you look at who's in school to learn about wine, right? There's a lot of young people getting into fermentation and viticulture, right? Fermentation science. So I think we're on the verge of another wave of great creativity.
Yeah.
In today's world of being able to make labels, on your laptop while you're screwing around, or, probably on your phone. I wouldn't know how that works. But so I think we're in for a wave of creativity that we haven't seen in our industry in a while. And I think, our industry needs it, right? Wine's going backwards a little bit, right? We're down 4 points. And so we need more exciting things to bring in a younger consumer. And I think that younger winemaker and younger grape grower are the people that are going to help us do that. So I'm excited to see what comes out in that.
So sorry to interrupt, but so did you guys never jumped into the seltzers or any of that sort of thing?
No.
So the thought of younger people coming in and figuring out their own destiny, it kind of goes along with what you're saying, right?
There is a Bandit seltzer, right?
Yeah, we did through Trinchero, we did a Bandit seltzer in the Northwest.
Okay.
So yes, I stand corrected.
But it's not.
Wasn't really what that was a marketing department. That was just.
I was more just wondering if it still existed. The Bandit.
No.
But it's not something on your radar. You're still thinking wine.
Yeah, and look, it's exciting, right? I love that people drink rosé, right? I mean, rosé is like what we should all drink on Sunday afternoon, right? It's like a beautiful, sweet, sour, savory, salty thing. Sauvignon Blanc is exciting that's growing. Aromatic whites. I'm love to see more red blends out there that are not just sweet, because I think that can drive in the consumer. I love sparkling wine. It's really exciting to see that there's so much attention to sparkling. As we all know, sparkling is expensive to make. So that's a little bit the downside with sparkling. The other thing that I think will help save our industry, right, is that, there's an exploratory thing when you go in the wine department and it's so big, right? And there's a lot of retailers who are figuring out how money can be made in the wine department. And so, hopefully we continue that experience of the wine steward, the bigger wine departments, great displays, turning people on to cool little wines. And that's what drives creativity and new customers in our business.
Yeah, because you are sort of, you're in competition, especially for the younger consumers, with sort of this natty or natural wine movement where people are looking for bottles of wine that are around the $20 range, that are a little bit more experimental. They play around with more unique varietals. And Bart and myself, the winery that I work for, we're not sort of in that same realm. We're in the higher price point. But you're kind of going up against that market when you're fighting for younger consumers.
Yeah, and you look, I mean, the natural wine thing, I think we're all out of an era of the wine business that like we don't understand no sulfur in wine because it turns brown and yellow, and like, whoa, that's like everything we're taught that's wrong. And I'm not a big natural wine fan. I'm not saying that it's wrong in any sort of way, right? But I just like, when you have an amazing glass of Sauvignon Blanc or Coastal Chardonnay or something like that, right? That's like, to me, the pinnacle. I'm interested in those flavors and not in that muted flavor that a lot of these wines are made in, or the orange wines.
And having to explain those flavors. Like, why can't it just taste delicious? Why does there have to be a discussion about it?
If you have to explain why it tastes like a dead rat, it's probably not good. Yeah, you can quote me on that.
And so what I mean, our competitive set is a lot of the big boys too, right? So we're kind of a weird thing in the industry, like a weird unicorn, right? That we're a small company partnered up with a big company. So I get to play in the big boy world, but I get to have destination. I get to do creative trials of things like this and Grenache from France, and so we can make Gruner Veltliner, right? I mean, we probably tape a $50 bill to every one of those bottles, but it's a great experiment to do. So we're lucky that we get to spend time creating, and that we're in a fighting varietal price point to make what I think are pretty interesting wines. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we need people doing the natural wine bars. We need that because it's drawing consumers in.
100%, and I think this is actually. This made with organic grapes, the 22 Sauvignon Blanc is sort of I doubt you'll be surprised. You might be pleasantly surprised at how well it does and how you'll be asked to do that again.
I think the number one way to get the younger generation into, right, having a glass of wine and not feeling nervous about it, right, is that it's kind of that peer pressure. You're having your friends over and everybody brings a bottle of wine and you pour it around because it looks like you don't session like, I don't know, seltzer when you're having dinner, and it's like the beginning of the dinners at the friend's house that people bring wine and they don't know if they really like it or not, and like that to me is the way to get the generation into drinking wine, kind of the same way we all got there, except now they've passed through seltzer phase or beer phase. We probably all just had beer phase. Now you get the edible phase, get the vape phase, so maybe we're just we're in phase 4 now, once it comes to the dinner party, right? Who doesn't love a dinner party?
Isn't that amazing? Wow.
All right. Any thought on reusable glass?
I love it. Return and reuse is amazing. I don't know how we do it in this country, and we're so not built for it. This Sauvignon Blanc, just for fun, the organic one is in lightweight glass. You didn't notice. If you grab the two of them, you notice it not by view but by feel. So you look, as an industry, we got to do a better job on glass and environmental things. And so I want to get our cab and our Sauvignon Blanc over time into lightweight glass. All the wine that we ship to Canada is in all lightweight glass, encouraged by the SAQ, the eastern side of Canada, or else they send you a big fat penalty bill. And so this is the beginning of it, right? We got to get there. Glass is a disaster to buy anyhow right now. Environmentally, it's tough. So, our whole industry, we got to get wise on glass.
Yeah. And it just makes sense, right? It's so funny when you see, I don't know if you guys notice little snacky foods. You have kids, so do you, Bart. That it used to be, you had a big bag of like chips or whatever, and it was kind of full. And now it's all the little snack bags that seem, it's like there's 5 chips in there. Yeah. And I think the big companies have figured it out that, there's still, people are still getting a little package, but it only has 5 chips in it. So we're giving them less food. And by the way, we're saving a shit ton on shipping. There's some little messages in there coming from people that have a lot of bean counters.
Hey, listen, the next generation is way better than all of our generation, and the 2 below them are even better, right? So these younger people are going to have to fix what we all screwed up, and our parents and our grandparents.
I think the secret to saving the future of the planet and our society is just getting the ball to. My daughter's 20, like her generation or your son's generation, where like they're just operating on a totally different,
way smarter than all of us.
Yeah. And way more conscious.
Yeah. All right. Anything you want to promote going forward? Anything you're involved in? Any events that you're working on? Cycling events?
No, I would say the basic thing we need to promote is more people drinking wine. So let me know. I can help with that.
I think you're doing your part.
I try.
Yeah.
2 bottles a day is all I ask.
Right. Right.
Shout out to the bunches for that. Joel Gott, thank you very much. This has been awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Say hi to your family.
I will.
And we'll see you soon.
I'll see you at a basketball game.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
This weekend, right?
Our son's played. Yeah. Is Dan playing?
He is. He's playing. A matter of fact, last night at practice, your son was kind of schooling Dane a little bit. And it's good because I think Dane, it's on the podcast, whatever. Your son brings an intensity to the game, and he seems to motivate some of the other kids with that.
Oh, good.
Like, and you know what I mean, right? I mean, like, he talks a lot. He's always, he's like your, yeah. He reminds me of you a little bit, maybe when you were young.
Oh no.
Oh boy.
Thanks, Joel. Seriously, appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening to the podcast. James, thanks for sitting in today. Sam,
Special assignment.
Happy Passover. That's right. Happy Easter. This show will come out on Friday. So I hope everyone.
Happy Good Friday.
Happy Good Friday.
Have
I
some
hope
fish
some fish would be beautiful. The Sauvignon Blanc, and then if you're planning on having brisket, I think this Grenache would be amazing.
Fish tacos at.
Oh, thank you. We had a great lunch today. Right, stole a wine.
Get fish tacos. You got to get a breakfast biscuit sandwich at the station.
Yeah, the gas station. Our pizza. We just opened our pizza place.
What?
So yeah, we got pizza now. 4:30 on
at the station.
Behind it, we got the little Papa Murphy size takeaway.
Oh man, so many reasons to drive over the mountains.
Dude, I couldn't let all the good pizza be in Petaluma. Come on, Petaluma pizza thieves.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll look forward to talking to you next week.
Hey guys, I got.